The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The recent deluge of tech scams likely came from foreign groups trying to dupe Filipinos, according to PLDT. The company said that its cybersecurity group found that the domestic groups are working with foreign criminals to buy SIM cards in bulk, which then they use to send scam messages. The telco also believes that the latest series of messaging scams are sent person to person. PLDT has blocked some 342 million scam text attempts as of August. They have also deactivated at least 167,000 SIM cards involved in fraud in the same period. The Fisheries Bureau warns the public against toxic red tide in 4 areas in the country. The agency collected shellfish samples positive for poisonous substance in Dawis and Tagbilaran, in Bohol, Matarinao Bay in eastern Samar, Dumanquillas Bay in Zamboanga del Sur, and Ilianga Bay in Surigao del Sur. BFAR said shellfish taken from these areas are not safe for human consumption. However, fish, squids, shrimp, and crab are safe to eat as long as they are fresh and washed thoroughly before being cooked. The social welfare system says there will be some delay in the release of benefits and pension that were processed from August 25 onwards. Recall that in late August, a fire broke out in the state-run insurance office in Quezon City. While no member records were affected, the fire caused damage to SSS servers and its connection to partner banks, causing the delay in processing. The agency says they're fast-tracking efforts to restore operations back to normal. The World Health Organization says the end of the COVID-19 pandemic is in sight as global infections dip. JC Cosico with the details.
We're not there yet, but the end is in sight. We can see the finish line.
The end is in sight. That was the statement of World Health Organization Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus on the state of the COVID-19 pandemic worldwide. As last week, the number of weekly deaths reached its lowest point since March 2020. WHO data shows 11,000 COVID deaths were recorded globally from September 5 to 11, 22% lower than the previous week. Weekly infections also fell by 28% during the same period. Still, the WHO warns the fight continues.
Now is the worst time to stop running. Now is the time to run harder and make sure we cross the line and reap the rewards of all our hard work.
In the Philippines, COVID infections also continue to decline. That as of September 14, average daily cases are at 2,200, down 7% from the previous week. Positivity rate, meanwhile, is at 12.5%. Earlier this week, the government has allowed the optional use of face masks in open and non-crowded outdoor areas. Local governments are now issuing their respective ordinances following the new policy. But in Manila, face masks are still required in heavily crowded spaces and during activities where social distancing cannot be obtained, just like the Feast of the Black Nazarene.
Halimbawa po, sa mga lugar kagaya ng Quiapo, Divisoria, ini-encourage po namin na sana kayo po ay patuloy na gumamit ng face mask para na rin po sa inyong proteksyon.
The DOH also reminds the public to assess when to wear or remove their face masks.
Kasi dapat turuan natin yung ating mga mamamayan na syempre pag pupunta tayo sa high-risk area, isusuot natin ang mask. Pag pumunta tayo outdoor, low-risk, tatanggalin.
But the DOH maintained it won't recommend easing face mask restrictions in schools as masking remains protective to children.
Hindi ho namin irerekomenda kahit kailan na magtanggal ng mask ang ating mga kabataan kapag sila ay papasok sa eskwelahan. Gusto ko rin lang hong puntuhin na wala hong harm na nagagawa ang mask sa ating kabataan.
The agency says it will soon issue its revised minimum health protocol guidelines following the national order easing outdoor face mask rules.
At dyan natin ilalagay kung ano yung mga specifics natin according to low-risk individuals, according to low-risk settings.
For News 5, JC Cosico, we are One News.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. La Nina phenomenon is wreaking havoc in many economies as it causes droughts to some regions and flooding to others. Let's get more details on its impact in this Bloomberg video.
Less than a degree Celsius. That's the temperature change needed in the Pacific Ocean to up the price of your cup of coffee and a whole bunch of other stuff. Why? Because that little difference causes stronger winds over the Pacific, forcing warm air to push westward, creating the phenomena known as La Nina. While it typically comes every few years and lasts several months, this La Nina has been lingering since 2020. And odds are it's gonna stick around for a third winter in the Northern Hemisphere, lasting into 2023. So what are the consequences? Winter storms will shift away from California and the US West, leaving them drought-stricken. Drought and heat waves will stretch across Brazil and Argentina, affecting corn, soybean, coffee crops. Meanwhile, across Southeast Asia, rubber plantations and palm oil fields will be soaked. And as for Australia, rain and flooding from past La Niñas have hurt wheat quality and disrupted coal shipments. But some of the worst consequences are happening in the Caribbean right now. Changes brought by La Niña in the Pacific also affect Atlantic winds and could leave the region even more vulnerable to destructive storms.
Let's now take a quick look at today's other top stories. The LTFRB has approved fare hikes for jeepneys, buses, taxis, and ride-hailing services. The increased fares take effect on October 4. Maguindanao residents begin voting on whether to split their province into two. Casting of votes, or canvassing rather, of votes will begin right after voting concludes at 3 p.m. And the Social Welfare Department resumes its distribution of educational cash assistance. The DSWD has today and September 24 to process and release pending payouts. And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 1:30 in the afternoon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.